In the heart of a bustling city, there existed a haven of peace known to all as Centennial Park. It was a place woven from the threads of time, where ancient trees whispered stories to the wind, and every cobblestone path held the echo of 1,000 footsteps. And in the center of this park, watching over the flow of the seasons, stood Leo. Leo was not a man, at least not one of flesh and blood. He was a bronze statue, a soldier from a forgotten war, frozen in time, with one hand on his chest and a solemn gaze fixed on the horizon. He had been there for nearly 100 years. His metal skin had watched empires fall within the pages of newspapers read on the park benches. And he had seen new technologies born on the bright screens everyone now carried in their pockets. Over time, Leo's bronze had acquired a greenish patina, a map of all the rains and suns it had witnessed. He felt as much a part of the park as the oldest oak or the cherub fountain. But despite being surrounded by life, Leo felt profoundly alone. His world was a silent monologue, a perpetual observation without a response. Until, on a Tuesday in spring, everything changed.
That day, a truck and a crane arrived at the park. With exquisite care, a team of workers installed a new sculpture just across the small plaza, directly in front of him. When they removed the tarps, Leo's bronze heart, the one that hadn't beaten in a century, seemed to give an impossible lurch. It was her. A statue of white marble, so pristine and luminous it seemed to radiate its own light. It depicted a woman sitting on a bench, an open book on her lap.
Her head was slightly tilted, as if absorbed in her reading, and a soft smile played on her stone lips. Unlike Leo's martial rigidity, she emanated a sense of calm, curiosity, and infinite grace. They named her Clara. From that day on, Leo's monologue became a dialogue. A silent dialogue, of course, but more real to him than any conversation he had ever overheard. He began to speak to her in his mind. "Good morning, Clara," Leo would think at every dawn as the first ray of sun made the marble of her cheek glow. "I hope you rested well. It looks to be a splendid day for reading." He couldn't hear her, but he could imagine her response. He watched how the light played across her face throughout the day, and to him, these changes were her expressions. A shadow crossing her smile was a moment of reflection on her book. A glint of sun in her stone eyes was a spark of joy. Together, they became the guardians of the park's little stories. They watched a young couple have their first date, awkward and nervous, on the bench right between them. They saw that same couple return months later, holding hands, and years later, pushing a baby stroller. They watched an old man who came every afternoon to feed the pigeons, and they made up stories about who he was and who he was waiting for. In his mind, Leo told Clara stories of the decades gone by. He described what the park was like when cars were a rarity and ladies wore hats with feathers. Clara, in turn, with her eternally open book, seemed to share with him the magic of the worlds contained within its pages. Tales of dragons and castles, of distant stars and impossible loves. Clara's book became a symbol, of all the adventures they couldn't live, but that they could imagine together. Their only tangible link was the pigeons. There was one in particular, a brave bird with a slightly crooked foot that Leo nicknamed Pip, who would often perch first on Leo's helmet and then fly over to rest on Clara's book. To Leo, Pip was their messenger, carrying silent greetings from one side of the plaza to the other. Sometimes Pip would drop a small leaf or a shiny feather onto Clara's lap, and Leo would imagine it was a gift from him. The seasons passed, weaving their relationship with threads of autumnal gold, winter silver, and spring green. In winter, when snow covered their shoulders of metal and marble, Leo felt a protective instinct. He wished he could shake the snow from himself and offer it to her as a cloak to keep her from the cold. An absurd idea for a statue, but profoundly real in his unmoving heart. In summer, they shared the relief of brief rain showers and the sound of children laughing as they ran through the sprinklers.
But one day their peaceful world was threatened. A group of men with blueprints and serious suits stopped between them. They spoke of remodeling, of modernizing the space. "The soldier is too old-fashioned," one said. "We could move him to the north entrance." And the reader, "She's pretty, but she doesn't fit the new dynamic concept. Perhaps the botanical garden would be a better place for her," another replied.
An icy panic, colder than any winter, seized Leo. Separate them? The idea was unthinkable. It would be like tearing out his soul. For the first time in 100 years, Leo felt a burning rage. He wished he could step down from his pedestal, strike his bronze rifle against the ground, and tell them to leave. But he could only remain still, a silent witness to his own fate. He looked at Clara, and in the way the evening shadow fell across her face, he saw the same sadness he felt. The weeks that followed were torture. Every day could be their last. But then, something happened that no one expected.
One night, a fierce storm battered the city. It wasn't a summer shower, but a monster of wind and thunder that tore branches from trees as if they were dry twigs. Leo, anchored to his pedestal, resisted the onslaught of the wind, but his gaze was fixed on Clara. Above her, one of the largest and oldest branches of the Centennial Oak was creaking and groaning, bending dangerously.
Leo saw it coming. With a terrible moan, the giant branch broke. It was going to fall directly on Clara, threatening to shatter her delicate marble form. A whirlwind of impossible emotions exploded inside Leo. No, not her! He gathered all the will of his being, a century of contained energy, and wished with every fiber of his metallic existence to move, to protect her. And then, at the height of the storm, a blinding bolt of lightning split the sky. The light reflected with supernatural intensity off the Medal of Honor Leo wore on his chest. For a fraction of a second, a concentrated beam of light shot out from his chest and struck the base of the falling branch. It wasn't an explosion, but something more subtle, a vibration, a wave of pure energy. The branch's trajectory shifted, only by a few inches, but it was enough. With a crash that shook the entire park, the colossal branch slammed into the ground right next to Clara. It hit with such force that it tore up cobblestones and earth, but she remained untouched. Only a tiny chip of marble flew from the corner of her stone bench, a small battle scar. The next morning, the sun rose over a devastated park. When the workers and onlookers arrived, they couldn't believe their eyes. "It's a miracle!" they all said. "The statue was missed by inches!" The story of the miracle of the park spread through the city like wildfire. Newspapers published photos of Clara, serene and safe, next to the ruined branch, and people began to look at the statues differently. A little girl who'd heard the story from her grandfather approached Leo's pedestal and left a daisy at his feet. "Thank you for taking care of the reading lady," she whispered before running off. The city council, moved by the story and the public's reaction, scrapped the remodeling plans. Instead, they decided to honor the story. They cleared the debris, and rather than separating them, they created an even more beautiful space around them. They added more benches, planted rose bushes, and placed a small bronze plaque between them. The plaque didn't speak of miracles or beams of light. It simply read, "The Guardians of the Park." Leo and Clara were never separated. They remained facing each other, their bond forged in silence and sealed by a storm. The small chip on Clara's bench was an eternal reminder of that night, a shared scar that told their love story. And so, in the heart of the bustling city, two statues continued their silent conversation. They became a local legend, a symbol that love can blossom in the most unexpected places, without the need for words, without the need for touch. All it takes is a heart willing to see, to listen in the silence, and to believe that even a bronze soldier and a marble lady can share an eternal melody, the silent melody of Centennial Park.